when you look at this side-by-side comparison throughout the bill, it reads like a how-to guide in historical whitewashing. Are you aware that this new version of the bill from the Senate removes the writings of Frederick Douglass?
I am.
Are you aware that this new version of the bill from the Senate removes the writings of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.?
Yes.
Are you aware that this new version of the bill from the Senate removes the history of Native Americans?
The way the bill is laid out,
that's a yes or no question.
Because we were very clear that we could not be conclusive about every single document out there that we could. I'm going to give you an answer. You're not. This isn't a trial. I'm going to give you an answer.
Okay, I'm ready for the answer.
The way it's set out is so that a teacher can go to different documents in different authors by which to teach from. It's by no means meant to be a conclusive list.
Let me just ask you one more time. Are you aware that this new version of the bill from the Senate removes the history of Native Americans? It's on page 3 of the side-by-side if you don't have it in front of you.
Then I believe you.
Okay. Are you aware that this new version of the bill removes mentions of Cesar Chavez?
Yes.
Are you aware that this new version of the bill removes mentions of Susan B. Anthony?
Yes, I am.
Yet the new version of the bill from the Senate, this is not the bill we all passed as a House, but the Senate's version, it still includes the writings of Alexis de Tocqueville, and he's not even an American. Could that be because he's a white man?
Not exactly.
And there it is, plain as day. Texas living in the historical space that is America as it pertains to educating Black and brown people on this whitewashed version of history.
Mr. Toth, is it fair to say that any bill that strikes language condemning racism is a racist bill? Mr. Toth, we can move on to another question.
This is not new, and it didn't start with Ron DeSantis. So often people are crediting Ron DeSantis with this idea of banning books. This is not new. The Daughters of Confederates have a long history of banning books. So often we credit them with putting up the statues that honored Confederate generals and others. And they should get that horrible honor because it was them and their influence that got these statues put up after the Civil War. But something they did that had an even more powerful legacy in changing how white people in this country see, especially those in the South, see and saw the reasons for fighting the Civil War was their book. They created a guide on which books should be used to educate people, not just in elementary school, but throughout K through 12 and also college. And those guides on how you would educate people, they banned any books that spoke positive of Union fighters and banned any books that spoke negative of Confederate fighters or the Klan This is how we got the lost cause as a part of our common discussion as it pertains to the Civil War. So the idea that people in Texas are trying to ban the words of Frederick Douglass or Martin Luther King or Susan B. Anthony or Cesar Chavez, these are all people who fought against the status quo. What status quo are you talking about, Mundell? Glad you asked. I'll tell you. The status quo that everything in this country should be designed and built for the benefit of white man only. And when you challenge those systems and those ideas and those beliefs, you find yourself at odds with the status quo that is America.
Librarians as the threat to our kids and defunding public libraries. That's the real world here today in Republican-led Missouri.
That is Democratic State Representative Peter Meredith. Dystopian future. Democrat calls out GOP lawmakers for voting to completely defund Missouri's 399 public libraries.
They actually took out all state aid for public libraries explicitly because librarians are suing over their First Amendment rights over a book ban. I feel like we're starting to live in a dystopian future from like 1984 or Fahrenheit 411 or whatever, 451, thank you, where we're talking about book bans from the government and then the government being mad at librarians.
It's not the entire Missouri government that is mad, just Republicans. Unfortunately, Republicans control the Missouri House, Senate, and governor's office. This week, the Missouri House of Representatives voted for a state operating budget with a $0 line for public libraries. While the budget still needs to work its way through the Senate and the governor's office, state funding for public libraries is very much on the chopping block in Missouri. The cut amounts to $4.5 million. It was first proposed by House Republican Budget Chairman Cody Smith. Smith cited a lawsuit filed against Missouri by the American Civil Liberties Union. The ACLU is suing on behalf of the Missouri Association of School Librarians and the Missouri Library Association. They are trying to overturn a state law passed in 2022 that bans sexually explicit material from schools. The ACLU is working for the librarians free of charge, but that fact is lost on Republicans, including Budget Chair Smith, who argues, quote, the state should not subsidize the lawsuit by giving public libraries money. But again, the libraries are not spending a dime on the lawsuits. All of the money is coming from the ACLU. What the Missouri budget does subsidize is library operations. You know, things like putting books on the shelves, paying for building, upkeep, maintenance, and safety. If the Republican budget cut does go through, some libraries in bigger cities would be able to stay open because they get funding from private donors, but a lot of libraries in more rural areas would have to close. Those rural libraries are more dependent on state funds, and ironically, many of those libraries are in heavily Republican districts. So by zeroing out the library budget, state Republican lawmakers would be mostly hurting their own GOP constituents. Now, I can already hear what many of you are saying, and I suppose there is an argument that Republicans are not exactly attracted to libraries to begin with. Knowledge, facts, and diverse points of view don't seem to be much of a GOP priority these days. Instead, the Republican focus is on banning books, throwing out the Constitution's First Amendment, and punishing librarians who want a judge or a court to weigh in. If Republicans don't like a legal challenge to their book ban, that's fine. But the way they should respond is by putting their energies into the book ban defense. Make your legal argument if there is one and fight it out in court. But across the United States, Republicans seem to be abandoning the rule of law and dumping any respect for justice. There's also, of course, the rampant hypocrisy. When the debate turns to mass shootings and potential bans on assault weapons, Republicans scream about the Second Amendment and claim guns don't kill people, people kill people. But somehow these same conservatives insist that books kill and demonize people, and the First Amendment is irrelevant, they say. Amazing.
Now more than ever, experienced and effective leadership is required to address the serious challenges we face.
And one of those challenges, says Utah State Republican Representative Ken Ivory, is indecent literature. So Ivory and other Republicans recently passed a law making it easier to ban books in schools. But now, GOP lawmaker Very Sad Utah parent used his law to request sex-ridden Bible be removed from school. The parent made the formal request in Davis County, Utah. Quote, incest, onanism, bestiality, prostitution, genital mutilation, fellatio, dildos, rape, and even infanticide, the parent wrote in their request, listing topics they found concerning in the religious text. You'll no doubt find that the Bible under Utah code has no serious values for minors because it's pornographic by our new definition. Get this porn out of our schools, the parent wrote. If the books that have been banned so far are any indication for way lesser offenses, this should be a slam dunk. School officials say they are considering the request.
We don't jump to conclusions. We go through the entire process. We don't blow off one request because we think it's silly.
The parent requesting the Bible review included 49 pages of Bible verses that could be deemed inappropriate.
This has been very time-consuming. We have 15 committees that have been established for this purpose.
And now each committee will examine verses including this. Genesis 19:8 reads, see now, I have 2 daughters who have not yet known a man. Please let me bring them out to you, and you may do to them as you wish. Genesis 19:35-36 says, then they made their father drink wine that night also, and the younger arose and lay with him. And he did not know when she lay down or when she arose. Thus both the daughters of Lot were with child by their father.
My mission as your representative is to restore your governing voice. I'm passionate about helping you exercise your voice at the local level.
State Rep Ken Ivory calls the request to pull the Bible antics that drain school resources. There was a purpose to the bill, and this kind of stuff, it's very unfortunate. Poor Republicans, they want to ban books they deem indecent or pornographic, and now they are actually going to have to read the Bible and acknowledge what's in it. And that includes passages mentioning whoredom, breasts, fornication, sex, nudity, rape, incest, and so much more. And that's just the sexual stuff. If you're concerned about passages with graphic violence, well, the Bible has plenty of that too. Anyway, the new Utah law says something is indecent if it includes explicit sexual arousal, stimulation, masturbation, sodomy, or fondling. According to state attorneys, the material